All right. Then, yeah, I will jump right in with a quick introduction. So this dissertation is about developing processes and tools in the form of design artifacts that help us to research, explore, and curate large visual collections. By visual collections, I mean repositories of visual artifacts such as paintings, photographs, videos, drawings, prints, and other forms of visual media typically found in museums and libraries and archives. These collections are especially interesting and important to study because they offer rich historical, cultural, and artistic insights. They help us to better understand human creativity and the use of visual culture over time. Quantitative methods are essential here. They provide deep expert knowledge that helps to interpret and contextualize visual content, but large collections are hard to study qualitatively because of their sheer size and complexity. And computational methods offer this scalability, but they often rely on classification, reducing rich visual information to fixed categories and labels. So this reductionism leads to information loss and what some prominent critics describe as computational formalism. So we need mixed method approaches, processes and tools that combine qualitative insights with computational power for more open-ended and nuanced exploration. So one promising direction is to work with continuous multidimensional data, such as image embeddings, and these embeddings allow us to investigate what I call similarity spaces. And by similarity spaces, I mean multi-dimensional vector embeddings that are interpreted through visual resemblance and quantified by distance metrics that measure proximity in the embedding space. So this makes visual similarity and how it is perceived by humans and machines one of the main research topics of my dissertation. My research consists of 5 design artifacts shown here on the right side, each developed from a set of problem statements left and the corresponding research objectives in the center. The first problem is that current visual similarity measures don't reflect the nuanced and multifaceted nature of family resemblance. So we need new tools to better understand and capture visual similarity perception. The second problem is the scarcity of benchmark datasets for evaluating visual similarity perception. These are important for understanding how different embedding methods perceive similarity, and we need ways to generate and validate such datasets. The third problem is that traditional collection interfaces make it hard to grasp the overall structure of large visual datasets. They limit exploration and often require prior knowledge about the data. So the goal here is to design tools that support interactive exploration of patterns and relationships in visual collections. And the final problem is that current tools are not well suited to track how visual styles and themes evolve over time in cultural heritage collection. So static categories often miss subtle changes. So the fourth objective is to build tools that enable a more systematic analysis of these visual dynamics. So now coming to the first of the 5 peer-reviewed and published articles that constitute this thesis, the Collection Space Navigator. It's an interactive visualization interface and research tool that allows users to explore and interact with multidimensional data sets. So this is important and needed because it enables open-ended research and visual analysis of large visual collections rather than just presenting predefined results. Most existing tools that visualize similarity spaces either lack flexibility and openness. They are often tailored to a specific data set. A well-known example is the Google Arts and Culture T-SNE map from 2016, or they only offer limited filtering and navigation options. So for example, the PixPlot from Yale University, which doesn't support advanced filtering or real-time interaction, and is mainly focused on communicating existing results rather than exploring the collection space. So together with my co-authors, we developed a tool that is open source, flexible and customizable, so that researchers could use their own domain data methods and research questions. It is scalable for large data sets, support both distant and close viewing through metadata access, and offer intuitive real-time filtering and exploration. So a visual collection usually consists of two parts, visual data and often metadata. The visual data can be embedded into a multi-dimensional feature space where the content is mapped based on similarity. To do this, we first need to extract features using an embedding model that could be a pre-trained convolutional neural network like a ResNet-50, or we could use a more recent vision transformer or a CLIP model, for example. So these models encode visual material into numerical vectors that describe visual features across many dimensions. So for example, ResNet-50 gives us a feature vector of 2048 dimensions. And since we can't see in 2048 dimensions, we reduce the dimensionality to produce a two-dimensional projection of the embedding space. A classic linear method would be a principal component analysis, or more complex nonlinear techniques like UMAP or t-SNE. So once projected, the user can interact with the collection through the Collection Space Navigator, freely exploring the visual space. And at that point, it's up to the human expert to focus on specific aspects, investigate patterns, and interpret the findings. The Collection Space Navigator runs directly in the browser, so either offline as a research tool or online as a web-based collection interface. And because it's highly customizable and can be adapted to different types of visual collections, subject domains, and research questions. For example, I worked with the Badisches Landesmuseum in Karlsruhe and the Ellert Pearson in Amsterdam to create online interfaces for browsing their museum collections. And in a larger research project on Soviet newsreels, it served as the main research tool, giving access to over 200,000 video frames. And I will come back to that later. And actually, there's one more use case that is not on this slide, which is for this defense presentation. So I will now give a quick tour of the Collection Space Navigator. Hope you can all see it. In the center, we have the main projection area, a two-dimensional plot where all images from the collection are mapped out. I can zoom in and out and move around. And when I hover over an image, it gets slightly enlarged for a quick preview. On the left side, there's a larger preview of the selected image with additional information about the individual object. On the right side, I can choose from my loaded datasets. We're looking here at a subset of the WikiArt dataset with around 27,000 images, mostly Western artworks. This is also where the metadata information comes from, and I can switch between different projections. So right now we are looking at the style categories from WikiArt annotations, which explains these clusters or buckets of images, which are grouped by style. I can also color these clusters to indicate categorical data, and I can adjust the size of the thumbnails in the projections. I might want to see how something develops over time. So for example, if I assign the year metadata to the horizontal axis here, we can see how the annotated styles align closely with historical periods. But working only with such categorical labels like this, which by the way are biased and imposed, probably won't lead to any surprising or new discoveries. And that brings me to the core idea of my dissertation, to look at collections through the lens of machine vision and to explore their similarity spaces. So here we see a UMAP projection that preserves both local and global structures from a multidimensional embedding space. And this space was created using a pre-trained ResNet-50 model, a neural network originally designed for image classification. But instead of imposing, again, categories on our collection data, we use a little trick here and skip the prediction step and only look at the feature space it produces. In this projection, images with similar vectors are placed close together. So for example, portraits naturally form a large cluster here. So in a typical classification setup, the model would now draw a boundary around this area and label all these images as portrait. But here we see so much more than just the answer to the question, is this a portrait, yes or no? We see subclusters, different types of portraits, different styles, different contents. And if this is what I'm interested in, I could now investigate these portraits closer and go beyond any classification or traditional textual taxonomies. The best way to use the tool is to try out different algorithms and parameters to play around with different projections and explore how the space and the data behaves. One of the main research goals behind this tool was to better understand what these projection methods do. So that was actually the initial motivation for developing the Collection Space Navigator. We wanted to gain some kind of intuition about multidimensional visual spaces. So when I switch between projections, for example, between UMAT and TSNI here, we get these animated transitions from one space to another. So we have the same high dimensional vector space, but representing it in two different projections, providing different views of the collection data. One of the main innovations of the Collection Space Navigator are these customizable filter range sliders on the right-hand side. These sliders can be assigned to any one-dimensional data, like the year metadata. With that, I can adjust the time range here. And above the sliders, there are histograms showing the data distribution, and they are all interconnected, so adjusting one affects the others. In this demo, we assigned the first three principal components to the sliders. This helped us better understand how linear and nonlinear structures correlate and behave. We can also slide through a dimension, which is especially interesting for time-based data, essentially allowing us to time travel through the data set. But it's also very useful for understanding the general structure of the projection. One key challenge with neural networks like ResNet is that they are hard to interpret and often referred to as black boxes. So we can see that it does successfully compose similarity maps, but we don't know what the feature dimensions actually encode or what kind of similarity is modeled. Which brings me to the next research project, the compression ensembles. So here you see a TSNI projection of the same WikiArt dataset, but now encoded using our own compression ensemble method. This method doesn't rely on any learned features, and each dimension is fully explainable. So at first glance, the projection may look like, or may look similar to the one from ResNet. But yeah, in this case, we are not modeling semantic meaning, we are quantifying visual complexity. And I will explain how that works next. With the compression ensemble paper, we propose a method to construct interpretable image embeddings by combining simple image transformations with compression algorithms. This is important and needed because it allows us to model visual complexity as a multidimensional algorithmic phenomenon. Existing approaches are often computationally complex and expensive with ambiguous results, and they all reduce complexity to a single compression metric, which fail to capture its multiplicity. Compression ensemble contrast offer a transparent and interpretable framework that does not require any training data, and they let us operationalize visual complexity in a multifaceted way with various dimensions. So this ensemble approach consists of two main steps. First, an image is modified using a series of standard image transformations, for example, making it blurry, reducing the number of colors, extracting edges, and so on. Then second, we compress all of these new images by taking advantage of the compression algorithms in file formats such as GIF. And by comparing the compressed file sizes, we calculate how well each version compresses relative to the original. So these compression ratios form a vector, just like the image embeddings from deep learning models. But in our case, each dimension is meaningful and fully explainable as derived from specific transformations. So in our paper, we use this model. We use this to model artist careers. Here we took all available paintings by Mondrian from the WikiArt dataset, sorted them by year, and computed the compression ratio vectors for each artwork, shown here as vertical columns. And we see a clear stylistic trend, the gradual emergence of Mondrian's iconic visual language towards a more abstract art form. And again, unlike deep learning, we know exactly what each dimension represents and can now look at specific aspects as shown on the right side. We also used the method to model artist careers based on temporal resemblance. So in order to investigate how innovative their work was, or at least within the compression space. So using visual similarity, we measured the time gap between a given artwork of an artist and its 100 nearest neighbors by other artists. So in this plot, if the gray line goes above the yellow contemporary base, it means the artist's creations resemble the work of other artists in the upcoming years, so anticipating the future. If the line goes below, the artist seems to recapitulate the past. In Mondrian's case, we see that he quickly became ahead of his time with artworks resembling others up to 50 years into the future, based on the compression ensemble similarity space. So this method gave us a powerful addition to deep learning embeddings, but we still needed a systematic way to compare such models to understand which aspects of similarity they actually capture. This brings me to my next article, Fruit Salad, style-aligned artwork dataset to reveal similarity perception in image embeddings. It's a method for generating and evaluating benchmark datasets that help us understand how models perceive visual similarity and where the bias lie. So this is important and needed because we currently lack solid tools for evaluating and choosing the right models for similarity-based research. We need to understand what type of similarity a specific model picks up. Does it focus on semantic meaning or style, composition? Is it more about color, shape, and so on? Related work rather focus on recognition tasks with text annotations or optimization tasks of single metrics using image triples, but they do not offer a systematic control over single property dimensions to investigate different aspects. With the SALAD framework, we now have such a controlled, standardized way to generate benchmark datasets and evaluate model perception. So as our first benchmark and an example to investigate semantic category versus style perception, we created Fruit Salad, 10,000 high-resolution images of fruit depictions. And here's how it works. We start with a prompt, for example, an apple in cubist style to create a reference style image. Then using diffusion inversion and shared attention, we fix the style and generate other fruits like oranges or strawberries in exactly the same stylistic properties. We can then extract feature vectors from these controlled images, revealing how different methods and models perceive them. So coming back to the Collection Space Navigator, here is an overview of Fruit Salad benchmark. I arranged the images in a grid with columns representing fruit categories and the rows representing the styles. So we have 10 fruits by 10 styles. That makes 100 combinations. And to scale the data set up, I produced 100 instances per combination, which gives us a total of 10,000 unique fruit images. But to keep this visualization here simple, I'm using just a subset of 10 instances per combination. So now using 2D projections, I can visualize the similarity space created by different models and reveal how each one perceives visual similarity. We can see here clearly the different biases of the models, especially when coloring by fruit or style. We can see which models are more sensitive to one or the other. The tool allows me to basically see the fruit salad data set through the lens of these models. Of course, I can also investigate specific aspects of the benchmark dataset, like individual styles or fruit categories. And yeah, now I can actually directly compare apples with oranges. So for example, here are two popular models. One is often said to capture style better. The other is known for semantic structure. And with the fruit salad, we can finally move beyond anecdotes and test these assumptions systematically. We can also compare model similarity using heat maps. Here we actually have two heat maps in one, separated by the diagonal, so we can see both property dimensions in a single view. And here's how to read it. So each pixel is an image pair representing their mutual similarity through their calculated distance value. We use the same data, but order it in two different ways. So above the diagonal, it's grouped by category first, then style, and below the diagonal, it's style first and then category. So these patterns visualize how a model perceives visual similarity in the fruit salad. This example here is from a dino model, which is often said to capture stylistic features. And the pattern we see here clearly supports this observation. These patterns can differ widely. Here are some examples. The first three from top left are actually conceptual references. So they are hot encoded to simulate how it would look like if a model was completely style blind, category blind, or balanced. So for example, in the case of style blind, it would recognize same fruits, but would fail to identify same styles. And since the model matrices have the same dimensionality now, we can treat them as vectors and embed them into a shared metric space. So mapping the models relative to each other. So here on the left, for example, we see that the compression ensemble method is very close to category blind reference. That makes sense since the method doesn't use any learned semantic knowledge. In the middle, Dino version 2 and ResNet 50 show more balanced behavior, some sensitivity to both style and category. And on the right side, the two base vision transformers show more style blind tendencies. But what really surprised me is that the huge version of the same vision transformer is on the left close to category blind. So completely opposite to these base models. So it seems that model size and architecture have a much bigger impact than, for example, the training data. So in fact, the training data doesn't seem to have any impact on category versus style perception in this particular example. But now putting aside models and metrics for a moment, I would like to return to cultural heritage collections and show how similarity spaces can support cultural history research. In the paper, A Framework for the Analysis of Historical Newsreels, we combined several methods to study large-scale visual media. This is important and needed because it lets us study long-term patterns and visual dynamics in newsreels, something traditional methods struggle to do at scale. My main contribution here was the visual analysis using similarity spaces, and the Collection Space Navigator was a central part of this framework. The final article in my thesis demonstrates this with a case study on Soviet visual propaganda. We investigated around 1,700 newsreels videos, each usually 8 to 10 minutes long, spanning almost 5 decades of Russian language newsreels produced by the Central Documentary Film Studios in Moscow. So here the Collection Space Navigator functioned as the main research tool, enabling both close viewing of individual frames and distant viewing across thousands of visual records. The method here is similar to the one I showed in the beginning, except we are working with videos instead of images. So there is another pre-processing step using shot boundary detection to segment the videos into single shots and then extract the middle frame as a representation of the footage material. So these representative frames were then embedded into a similarity space again, which could be explored and interpreted by my colleague, Dr. Mila Euwer, who brought her deep subject domain expertise as a historian researching Soviet newsreels. So yeah, here we have more than 200,000 frames, a large data set that still runs smoothly in the Collection Space Navigator. And as I browse the projection, we can quickly see clusters of recurring visual themes. Here, for example, we see all the shots of the Kremlin grouped together. Then in this area, we have men in black suits giving speeches. And over here, you will notice close-ups of people. When we go deeper, we could see many subclusters of professions based on their different heads. And here, this area, yeah, we have what we call the meeting table cluster. It shows negotiation scenes that, at long tables, usually between different delegations. And by exploring how these clusters appear and change over time, we can reveal long-term patterns in the visual language of Soviet newsreels. So using the range sliders, we can filter for specific time periods and then export these projections to use later for communicating our findings. So a purely qualitative approach, watching each newsreel one after another, not only takes a lot of time, it also makes it easy to miss these broader visual patterns that become immediately visible in the Collection Space Navigator. So for example, seeing all these people, subclusters of different historical heads would require a model to be trained on such a specialized data set. Now, if we look at these meeting table clusters across different time periods, we can observe how the visual space evolves over time. In the 1950s, many of these scenes show more casual social gatherings, people drinking tea and sharing meals. But from the late 60s to the 80s, they depict rather formal negotiations between delegations. At first glance, this might suggest a move towards diplomacy or democratic governance, but that doesn't align with the actual political developments of the time. So what we are likely seeing here is not political opening, but rather a propaganda narrative communicated through these newsreel scenes, especially during the Brezhnev era. So while some motives changed over time, others remained remarkably consistent. So for example, the Kremlin was always shown as the central location of power. Its visual representation stayed nearly identical. Leadership was also portrayed in a highly ritualized way, consistently staged in front of the Lenin mausoleum. The only thing that would change are the individual leaders and the fashion, especially the headwear. Agriculture appeared abundantly, often used to emphasize prosperity and technological advancement. And the idealized image of the hardworking Soviet citizen, especially through close-up shots, was another motive that persisted across all decades. So these are just a few small examples from our study in which these findings are placed in a more comprehensive historical context, which I merely touched on here. But coming now to the conclusion of my thesis. In this dissertation, I proposed a set of processes and tools that explore and make use of the concept of similarity in large visual collections. The goal was to better understand the multifaceted nature of visual similarity and its perception, and to uncover the underlying dynamics and relationships within complex visual datasets. The outcomes and contributions include an evaluation method for visual similarity perception judgment, a benchmark dataset revealing perception bias in computational models, an embedding model quantifying aesthetic complexity as a multidimensional interpretable phenomena, a research tool to explore similarity spaces across large collections, a research framework for systematic visual analysis of long-term dynamics in a historical news media, with a concrete use case of Soviet newsreels investigating the regime's worldview and propaganda mechanisms, as well as other practical collaborations with cultural institutions from at least 4 different countries. Before I come to an end, I want to emphasize that all of these peer-reviewed papers are the products of multidisciplinary co-authorship at CUDAN, bringing together researchers from 3 different schools at Tallinn University. So I'm based at the School of Digital Technologies, but my co-authors also came from the School of Humanities, the Baltic Film, Media and Art School, as well as from external institutions. So I developed the Collection Space Navigator together with Mark Harnett-Sola. The Compression Ensemble paper was led by Andres Carius, and the Soviet studies were led by Mila Euwer. And other co-authors include Michael Tam, Sebastian Arnott from Cambridge and the Alan Turing Institute, Xenia Mukina, Vijune Semaitite, Mark Metz, Daniel Chavez Heras from King's College London, Helena Jut, and Maximilian Schich, who served as a principal investigator on all of these projects and led the CUDAN Research Lab. Yeah, and this would be it from my side for now. Thank you very much. And yeah, I'm looking forward to answer your questions and start the discussion.